Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Everybody hear me okay? Yes? Please. Thank you for the enthusiasm. If you can kindly take your seats, we're about to commence. If there are folks outside in the hallways, let's encourage them to come in. Hello, everyone. My name is Adil Iskander, and I'm the director of the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies here at SFU. It is my distinct pleasure to be part of today's program. I'm going to start off by saying that it is a very difficult time to be having the conversations that we'll be having today, but I cannot imagine a better moment, a better person, and a better space within which to have those discussions. But before today's program begins, I would like to bring or ask or invite to the stage two individuals, Gabby and Carmela, from UBC, who have served or were part of the graduate seminar in geography entitled The Long Arc of Fascism that was taught by Naomi Klein, who is known to everybody here and who is here too. I would like to invite Gabby and Carmela to share a land acknowledgement with us. So, Gabby and Carmela.
Hi, everybody. On behalf of the students in our graduate seminar at UBC, we have the honor to open this event with a land acknowledgement and to start our time together today in a good way. We are here today and tomorrow to discuss the long arc of fascism and the current political moment that we're witnessing in all its violence, but also to enact and envision alternative futures that are grounded in collective struggle and in liberation. We are doing this work on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. These lands are sovereign and unsurrendered, not governed by any treaty, nor formally ceded by these nations to so-called British Columbia or Canada, but taken by settler colonial governments through violence and theft. As we prepare to engage in conversations around fascism and genocidal violence, but also around anti-fascism, resistance, and organizing, we invite you to situate yourself on these lands and to reckon with the fact that many of us partake in these conversations as settlers and as uninvited guests. This makes us complicit and implicated in the centuries-long practice and ongoing violence of settler colonialism, in the displacement and dispossession that continue to occur here and across Turtle Island. We invite you to consider what it means that we benefit from colonial institutions like the universities many of us are associated with, and that we get to use this space, a building named for a mining company, enacting violence against Indigenous people in the Global South, in a city that has built its wealth around resource extraction, real estate, and gentrification, all of which are current manifestations of settler colonialism. We also ask that you reflect on your responsibilities and obligations to these lands and to the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh host nations. In this space and beyond, we invite you to ground your work in right relationship to the lands we are on, to engage with what it means to act in solidarity with Indigenous people, and to consider how we can align our work with Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination in theory, but also necessarily in practice.
Colonialism on these lands is also tied to colonialism in Palestine. Today marks 559 days of the first live-streamed genocide in history, perpetuated in Gaza by the Zionist regime in what is called by the Western world Israel. For 77 years, this regime has been occupying Palestine and violently displacing its indigenous population. The ongoing process, referred to as the Nakba, perpetuates egregious violations of Palestinian human rights. Many of us carry out our work engaging with academic institutions deeply intertwined with these colonial practices that are not bound to colonialism only on these lands, but extend their violent reach to Palestine through investments in companies complicit in genocide and occupation, through academic ties with institutions that partner with Israeli forces and/or operate on illegally occupied Palestinian territory, or through actively collaborating to persecute, silence, and punish those who oppose genocide. Over the past year, we have seen this repression escalate significantly. A year ago today, on April 18th, 2024, the NYPD stormed the campus of Columbia University and violently arrested over 100 students for camping in solidarity with Palestine. At least 3,100 students and professors in the USA have been arrested since October 2023 for Palestine solidarity. As of the end of the last month, 300 people connected to Palestine liberation actions on US campuses have been stripped of their visas. All of this stemming from a carceral system that has long existed under so-called liberal democracy. Repression in Canada has mirrored this threat, and the specter of Trump's deportation program looms large as we await our federal election. Fascism and settler colonialism are imprinted on these lands and the institutions we engage with, extending violent genocidal practices from Turtle Island to Palestine. As we enter these 2 days of intense and productive conversations, we invite you to join us in committing ourselves to resisting fascism, genocide, and occupation everywhere on Turtle Island, in Palestine, and beyond.
Thank you so much, Gabby and Carmela, for helping us position our conversation today in light of these eviscerating projects of settler colonialism, apartheid, oppression, dispossession, and silencing of any form of democratic humanistic practice. So I want to thank you for that. I want to start off by expressing a little bit of gratitude for these next 2 days, today's event and tomorrow's event. I want to say that this event and tomorrow's workshop would not have been possible without the tireless work of everyone at the UBC Center for Climate Justice and its fearless director, Naomi Klein, along with a team of remarkable staff and volunteers. Many thanks to Rachel Stern, Jacqueline Fitzpatrick, Katie McChesney, and the extraordinary students of the Geography 545 Long Arc of Fascism that both Gabby and Carmela represented, for basically making this not only an imperative, but an urgent intervention during this moment. On behalf of our folks here at the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies, I'd like to thank the dynamos that make this place tick. The reason why we have been able to run about 50 events in the past year and fill this cinema almost every time. Our CCMS coordinator and dynamo, Kylie Broderick. Thank you for the work that you do, Kylie. And 3 exquisitely valued, but also embarrassingly underpaid research assistants, the Renaissance man and resident comedian Parsa Ali Rezai. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Our award-winning in-house David Lynch, his name isn't David Lynch, Joseph Mithsula. Thank you, Joseph, for what you're doing. And our community outreach and Muslims in Canada archivist, Oromia Ali, who isn't with us today, but thank you, Oromia. The work we do here at the center is supported by a stellar steering committee comprised of Drs. Tamara Soma, Yildiz Atasoy, Janice Jong, Spiro Sophos, Tamer Mustafa, and a large number of affiliated faculty from across SFU who enrich our university, city, and global scholarship with their dynamic research and exquisite instruction in these fields. I must say that during these extraordinary times, it's important to feel that you are part of a larger community. And this community extends well beyond the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies here at SFU, where we have a vibrant, dynamic group of faculty who have come together in a very ad hoc fashion to continue pushing for justice in Palestine in the form of Faculty for Palestine. And I want to thank everybody who's part of that. I lost count of how many we are. We're probably over 220 faculty members, which is a pretty substantial number. And we've been able to push for and succeed in passing motions for boycott and divestment here at SFU in our faculty association. So. And somehow it doesn't feel like enough. It's just, I don't even understand it anymore. This event is also co-sponsored by the UBC Department of Anthropology, UBC Institute for Gender, Race, Sexuality, and Justice, UBC Center for Migration Studies, Climate Migration Research Group, Peaceful Society, Science and Innovation Foundation, UBC Human Rights Collective, UBC Center for Community Engaged Learning, Transformative Memory International Network, SFU Department of Geography, SFU School of Communication, Digital Democracies Institute at SFU here, SFU Urban Studies Program, and the SFU School of International Studies. And I think if we had more time, we probably would have racked up more. So thanks to everyone who made this event possible and supported it from its outset. Yes, thank you. Amen. Right thing to say on Easter, right? Okay, so this is, as you know, is part of a longer program under the Long Arc of Fascism. For those who are going to be involved in it or participate in it, I just want to say that this teach-in is extraordinary in every sense of the word. Unfortunately, it is full, but nevertheless, for those who have an opportunity to participate in it, we are thrilled to have an incredible group of individuals and faculty members and thinkers and public intellectuals who are part of it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to name everyone there, but I strongly encourage you to go onto the website or click on the appropriate links for Long Arc of Fascism to see all the phenomenal people who will be part of this. So now to jump right in. It's not as if we haven't been right in the whole time. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Sherene Seikaly. Sherene is a dear friend and a colleague. We met some years ago, I'm not going to count, when we were both postdoctoral fellows at the Georgetown University Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University. Ever since, I have not stopped needing to be in Sherene's orbit, as many of us do, because of how enriching, enlightening, and empowering her presence is. Dr. Seikaly does so effortlessly and brilliantly what the late Edward Said described as the task of the organic intellectual in the Gramscian sense. The intellectual is meant, as Said described, to puncture the pomposity of power. Dr. Seikaly does this against all odds. The odds of living in an eviscerated academic context, rampant fascism, apartheid, silencing of dissent, and most painfully, during the ongoing genocide of her people, their lives, stories, histories, homes, hospitals, schools, universities, archives, their voices, and their memories. Without fetishizing Palestinian resilience, I wake up every morning unable to comprehend how one can go on with daily life. Pushing a boulder up a hill like Sisyphus, only to have it fall down again and come back every single day to do the very same thing, to speak truth to power and puncture the pomposity of power the way Sherene and countless Palestinians have to do day in and day out. This evening, in the keynote lecture that Sherene will be giving, it is part of the Long Arc of Fascism. Sometimes I think the arc isn't so long after all. Dr. Seikaly will help us understand how Palestine is a paradigm through which to see and understand our moment and to envision our momentum. Following the keynote lecture, I will invite to the stage UBC Center for Climate Justice Director Naomi Klein and organizer and co-host of the Long Arc of Fascism event to join me in reflecting on Sherene's lecture with an open discussion. But first, let me introduce Sherene. And none of this does you justice, Sherene. Sherene is an associate professor of history at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Seikaly is the editor of the Arab Studies Journal, co-founder and co-editor of Jadaliya Ezine, and now the editor of the Journal of Palestine Studies, quite likely and quite possibly the most embattled academic journal in the world today, and a policy member of Shabaka, the Palestinian Policy Network, and an advisory member of Archive Online Archive Project. Seikaly's Men of Capital, Scarcity and Economy and Mandate Palestine, published by Stanford University Press in 2016, explores how Palestinian capitalists and British colonial officials used economy to shape territory, nationalism, the home, and the body. She has published in academic journals such as International Journal for Middle Eastern Studies and the Journal for Middle Eastern Women's Studies, as well as in online venues, including Jadaliya, Mada Masr, and Hebr. A true public intellectual and a person who has helped us grieve over the last 550 days, both in a proverbial sense and a literal sense. I'd like to welcome to the stage Dr. Sherene Seikaly.
Thank you, Adil. I wanted to hug you, but you left. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies and the Center for Climate Justice, and to my dear friend and brother Adil Iskandar, and to Naomi Klein, who has been a force in the last 18 months for me and for so many of us. I'm very grateful to be with you. I stand with you today in debt and gratitude to the peoples and lands of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. It has been 18 months of witnessing the relentless, escalating fragmentation of Palestinian bodies and futures. It has been 18 months of mourning, of now the 50,000 Palestinian lives and counting who have been killed by Israeli arsenal. 18 months of holding tightly to the thousands under the rubble, of imagining a tomorrow for the largest amputee cohort in modern history. I stand bereft in loss. I stand in abundance, the abundance of our gathering, of the many communities we shape, of the histories we come from, of the things we know, and all that we will learn. How can we make sense of our worlds as they shrink and constrict under regimes of genocide, authoritarianism, and fascism? How can we hold ground on an earth giving way to mudslides, fire, floods, and drought? How can we move through the suspension of what we have long critiqued and still relied on, liberal norms of due process, academic freedom, and free speech? Today, I will think through these questions with you by sharing some lessons that Palestine and the Palestinians offer us as we navigate cartographies of loss and abundance. I do this work as a child of a Palestinian woman and man who became, like 750,000 other Palestinians, refugees in 1948. I am a product and a scholar of what we call our ongoing Nakba that spans the 100 years of denial of Palestinian political rights and peoplehood. As I embark, I call on my ancestors and yours to guide us. In the words of Indigenous scholar Kylie White, Indigenous peoples already inhabit what our ancestors would have likely characterized as a dystopian future. In this dystopia, we remain grounded in the knowledge that the lands and histories that we belong to reside in us. Dispossession is cumulative, repetitive, and ongoing. We know, but must always repeat, the Nakba did not end in 1948. The Nakba is not in the past. Catastrophe is not in the future. Palestine is not a laboratory. It is not a problem to be solved. It is not an object of salvation. Palestine is a paradigm. It teaches us about the long arc of dispossession, It teaches us about the cumulative power of settler colonial complicity, about how massacres culminate into genocide, about the attempted excision of large groups of people from the category of the human. I turn now to these lessons from and of Palestine about time, the body, and storytelling. Palestinians went to sleep in 2023 and woke up in 1948. Today, we are in the 559th day of the US-backed Israeli genocide of the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip. Following Leanne Simpson, we live in a present that collapses the past into the future. This genocide has kept time for us. It has kept time from us. Shock, loss, and exhaustion have melted, fused, and deformed time for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Days are transformed into years, years intermingle with moments, like the couple whose hands remained gripped together as they burned to death. The past and the future meld to shape the present. I think often of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, who until the last moments of 2024 worked tirelessly at the dilapidated and besieged Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahya. He healed, he soothed, he pleaded, he advocated amid unbearable loss and horror. On December 27, Dr. Abu Safiya witnessed Israeli forces kill 5 of his staff and set fire to his hospital, the last functioning medical facility in northern Gaza. The final photograph of Dr. Abu Safiya has become iconic. He walks in his tattered medical coat up a hill of rubble toward an Israeli tank. In this confrontation between man and tank, Dr. Abu Safiya walks in grief, in courage, residing in the present among the ruins of the past, facing the horror of the future. Today, suffering torture at the notorious Sde Taiman prison, Dr. Abu Safiya invites us into a sliver of time between the aggrieved past and the frightening future, the now. Sometimes this sliver opens wider. For a brief 2 months, the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip wrested relief from the jaws of grief. On January 19, 2025, at 11:15 a.m., Israeli jets, drones, and artillery shells that had dominated the Palestinian soundscape in the Gaza Strip fell silent. 15 months of unbridled brutality halted. It was only temporary. But nevertheless, relief was everywhere as aid trucks entered the besieged Gaza Strip. Israel's denial and restriction of food and basic goods had created one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes in the world. The respite was also short-lived. After all, Israel would dismantle UNRWA, the lifeline of survival of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, at the end of January. And we've known since the beginning of this genocide that Israel has engineered starvation through the destruction of agricultural land, through the attacks on aid convoys and infrastructure, through the targeting of aid personnel, bakeries, shelters, and markets. Today is the 48th day of the complete closure of Gaza to any humanitarian assistance. During those ephemeral days of ceasefire in January, joy overtook many at the sight of loved ones set free from Israeli prisons. 2 of those prisoners were Khalida Jarrar, who was held for 6 months of her detention in solitary confinement, and Mohammed al-Tous, whom Israel had imprisoned since 1985. The touch, smell, sight, and sound of freedom was indeed a respite, but Israel's carceral logic was never far from sight. Indeed, Israel's arrest campaigns had already doubled the number of Palestinians in Israeli custody since October 7, 2023. From then to this day, it has detained more than 10,900 people. Less than a week into the ceasefire, Israel arrested over 95 Palestinians across the West Bank. Joy and relief, the Palestinians know too well, are temporary under Israeli rule. Israel has promised to make Gaza uninhabitable. It has delivered that promise at slow and warp speeds. And at each turn, Palestinians have defied this intent. As soon as the ceasefire was announced, Palestinians began returning to their lands along the Mediterranean coast. In the face of the ongoing Nakba, they practiced what Rana Barakat has called ongoing return. In the West Bank, the Israeli military launched Operation Iron Wall, concentrated on the West Bank city of Jenin and its refugee camp. Settlers and soldiers joined forces to assault people, to partition the land, to prevent movement through cities, towns, and villages. Demolition, detention, and forcible expulsion have continued to define the everyday in the West Bank and across the geography of targeted and brutalized people from Rafah to Jenin. Palestinians know that what is to come has never left the present. They reside in a now, embodying all that remains and all that might be. Let me now turn to the body. Over the last 18 months, I've attempted to record, to grieve, what it means to live in the Gaza Strip. What does it mean to be a child, to parent, to age in genocide? And here I want to return to the 40th day of the genocide when a 10-year-old asked, "Are you taking me to the cemetery?" Covered in rubble, her skin burnt, the young girl looked at the death surrounding her and noted the end of her world, both singular and representative in her confrontation of loss. She is and hopefully remains a survivor amid the now well over 50,000 estimated to have perished. She is just one of the 116,500 people who have been estimated to have been injured. She is but one of the 24,000 children who have lost one or both parents. Is she lucky or cursed? Did she face the fate of those emaciated children who have died of starvation? Did she suffer surgery without anesthesia? Did she suffer the fate of one girl whose burns exposed her facial bones, who faced the agony and suffering of her death in the tattered hallways of a besieged hospital without the numbing power of morphine? Did she make it to any of the now destroyed hospitals that were a microcosm of Palestinians holding tightly to the remains of a social order? Would our young survivor have preferred death to the suffering and grief she now inhabits? How would she fare in the face of repeated displacement, the terror of a nuclear state annihilating a small piece of blockaded and parched land, the witnessing of family members dismembered? Did her loss lead her, like other children, as young as 5, to tell us that they would prefer to die? What does it mean to parent in genocide? To parent in genocide is to exist in fragments of time between life and death. For 15 months and the days since March 17th, when we have returned to conditions of industrial slaughter, Israel has killed 2 women every hour. Every day, 37 children lost their mother. Every pregnant woman lives in anticipation and terror, giving birth amidst death. Every pregnant woman resides in a landscape of miscarriage, stillbirth, premature birth, and congenital abnormalities. Women giving birth survive blood clots and multiple displacement while witnessing their children ravaged by shrapnel, disease, and hunger. Women give birth after Israeli shelling has killed their spouses. Women's babies stop moving in their wombs as they wait for people to save their spouses from the rubble of their homes. The specter of the death of their unborn child occupies their minds. Will the child survive? For how long? To parent in genocide is to witness bodies in fragments. It has become a strange scene to mourn over a shroud containing a whole body, with 2 hands, 10 fingers, 2 feet, and a head. To be a good parent is to bury your children whole. To be a good parent is to find the head matching your child's body after an airstrike. It is to hope that your child's body parts will not be mixed with the garbage or cut up in pieces, marked with tank treads and bulldozer tracks. It is to dig for your child's remains, and in so doing, pull your heart out of the earth. It is to pray that you can secure a graveyard that the Israelis will not destroy. To parent in genocide is to exist in fragments between speech and silence. It is to find words to prepare children for forced absences, sudden deaths, unexpected arrests, and critical injuries. It is to shelter from a place of grief. It is the struggle to speak with rage filling the throat. It is to swallow the tongue in times of speechless horror. It is to witness famine robbing speech. It is Khalil watching his son Saeed, his eyes hollowed, his skin ashen, his stomach empty, unable to cry from hunger. It is Nabila witnessing how horror forced her nonverbal son Muhammad to speak for the first time as Israeli soldiers released the dogs that would maul and kill him. It is Muna looking at her son Muazzaz as he emerged from 9 months of administrative detention, less than half his previous body weight, unable to walk, his right arm jerking, his speech erratic, unable to recognize his father. In the face of all this death, Palestinians offer lessons on how to cherish life. Fathers like Ahmed Imtiaz navigated bullets and survived hunger on and through love alone. On the day of the Flower Massacre in 2024, when throngs of hungry people at the Nabulsi roundabout in Gaza City were subjected to live Israeli ammunition, Imtiaz crawled for a kilometer as bullets rained down around him. He clung tightly to 4 cans of fava beans and a chicken. Once he was far from the Israeli attack that would take 115 lives that hour, he stood up to run. A journalist would later ask him if it was worth it. Yes, he answered, to save my children, to save my hungry children, yes. And how is it to age in genocide? Since October 2023, Palestinian elders have confronted a cartography in which 90% of people are displaced, confined to humanitarian zones that are systematically attacked. Israel has killed at least 4,000 people over the age of 60. Most have been crushed to death under the debris of their homes or in shelters where they sought refuge. Some died from shelling as they weathered forced evacuations. Some were on their way to market. Some were killed in field executions, on the march of the displaced in the early months of the genocide, making their way down Salah ad-Din Road, the main route to the southern Gaza Valley. Their bodies bloodstained and left on the street, tired, cold, thirsty, and hungry. 69% of Palestinian elders in the Gaza Strip have chronic illness. Like everyone else, they are subject to blockades, famine, and the destruction of the healthcare system. They have witnessed quadcopters killing pedestrians, making their way through the rubble of what is left of the streets. They have seen airstrikes destroying entire residential blocks. Elders are always among the thousands of Palestinians lined up by Israeli soldiers to be detained, tortured, and investigated. Israeli mass incarceration has not spared Palestinian elders. They too have been subject to the transformation of more than a dozen Israeli prison facilities, military and civilian, into a network of camps dedicated to the abuse of inmates as a matter of policy. In those prisons and camps, sexual and gender-based violence have increased so dramatically as to become systematic. Soldiers have arrested men and women over the age of 70 and subjected them to abuse, torture, and the denial of basic rights. Palestinians released from custody in recent months have emerged emaciated, bruised, and deeply scarred, providing a glimpse into the abyss. Elders like Ahmad Assaf, who was 74 when Israeli soldiers arrested and detained him, lost 60 pounds in Israel's prisons. His hair turned white. Some elders have been unable or unwilling to leave their homes. They could not face losing everything and walking for extended periods only to face new evacuation orders. Such elders decided to stay at home rather than endure the weariness of the displacement journey. They knew there was no such thing as a safe place. One couple hid in a room, its floor marked with their blood and littered with the fragments of the bullets that had executed them. Even to know one's last place of rest has become a luxury. The respite of knowing one's resting place was beyond imagination for the man facing 7 dispossessions on a cane, or for the grandfather soaked in his grandson's blood, grieving over his 3-year-old body. We saw them suffering the reality of dispossession once again, still holding tight to the hope of return, the hope of living and of resting in the afterlife. States often use the body to stage their power. We might think here of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and of how his attire became the grounds of his criminalization and the seizure of his corporal sovereignty, of his experience of confinement in the so-called terrorism confinement center in El Salvador. The body is no predetermined vessel. It is a historical subject. It is a site of buried evidence. In the Gaza Strip, whenever there is word of a humanitarian convoy arriving, Israeli soldiers bulldoze corpses and bury them under the rubble to suppress images of people in advanced stages of decay. Last month, a doctor at the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis named Ahmed Al-Farra uncovered a mass grave of 15 paramedics, their hands and feet tied with multiple shots to the chest. One paramedic had been shot in the head. Israeli soldiers executed these 15 men, crushed their ambulances and vehicles, and buried them all under the sand. Israeli soldiers are not the only ones who attempt to hide the bodies of assassinated paramedics and so many others. So too do the regimes of Israel and the United States. They bury the lead in their media, in their courts, and in their universities. Underneath the rubble and the smoking guns of genocide lie the deepest threat to these regimes, our capacity to tell our stories. Over the last 18 months, Israel has killed poets, writers, novelists, journalists, and scholars. The names are too many to recount, but we mourn every single one of them, from Rifat al-Arir to the photographic journalist Fatma Hassouna, killed just yesterday, whose photograph this is in front of you. They are targets because our stories, indeed, our very existence, is a source of fear. As scholar and organizer Ilyas Shufani pointed out in the late 1960s, a settler society in the midst of large indigenous populations cannot withstand the feeling of vulnerable existence. Between 7 October 2023 and 28 January 2025, the Israeli army killed over 13,000 students and 600 teachers and school administrators. Thousands of students and teachers and administrators have been injured. 281 government schools have been completely or partially destroyed. 90% of school buildings in Gaza have sustained varying degrees of damage. Universities were a target from the first week of this genocide. Israeli forces have destroyed every single university in the Gaza Strip. These include the Islamic University of Gaza, the University College of Applied Sciences, Al-Azhar University, Al-Aqsa University, Palestine Technical College, Al-Quds Open University, Gaza University, and Al-Isra University. Archives are another target. This is nothing new. Indeed, since 1948, every Israeli attack on Palestine and the Palestinians has targeted an archive, and the last 18 months have been no exception. Since October 2023, we have watched Israel obliterate the central archives of Gaza, incinerating 150 years worth of archival materials. We have witnessed the destruction, the bombardment, firebombing, and looting of the Gaza Municipal Library, the Islamic Manuscript Library of the Great Amari Mosque, the archives of the Ministry of Endowments and Religious Affairs, the archives of the Ministry of Education, and the archives of the Ministry of Interior, centuries of charitable endowments, decades of school collections and student data, countless collections of family registration documents are reduced to rubble. Genocide targets extended families in their entirety, attempting to erase the next generation by killing children in the thousands. Scholasticide, a term coined by Karma Nabulsi in 2009 to name the intentional destruction of education, is crucial to this attempt to destroy the future. The targeting of education is global. Indeed, the global right wing relies on a charisma of impunity, on miseducation, on wanting to make us all stupid. Universities, academics, and students are the target of escalated repression and silencing. In the United States, decades of austerity politics had already attenuated our spaces for critical inquiry. Today, things are moving at a warp speed as the Trump administration seeks to undermine academic freedom, eviscerate shared governance, diminish any faculty control over curriculum, and redefine, if not destroy, higher education altogether. A broad array of scholars, universities, associations, and educational institutions have fallen prey to anticipatory obedience. They rush to comply in advance of the pressure to do so. For their compliance, they are rewarded with more punishment. In January 2025, the U.S. administration issued 2 executive orders that criminalized the support of Palestinian liberation. Arrests, detention, kidnapping, and deportations have begun. In March alone, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency abducted, arrested, and detained Mahmoud Khalil, Badr Khan Suri, and Rumaisa Öztürk. They have deported Rasha al-Alawiya. Detention and deportation orders are presently underway for Yun Seong Chung and Momodou Tal. Over 1,200 international students have had their visas revoked. And we don't even know all the numbers because the universities aren't reporting them, and neither is the federal government. As Columbia University has learned all too well, complying with unconstitutional demands does not protect you. It erodes academic freedom, free speech, and due process. Palestine is shrinking. Palestine is everywhere. The Palestinian scholars of Gaza teach us, with their continued educational mission in the face of scholasticide, that we cannot avoid what is to come through obedience. The dangers of the future have already arrived. And here I'm going to conclude. And what I think is so exciting about the next 2 days is that we're really thinking about it as action-oriented. And so here are my contributions, humble contributions to that. Palestine is not a laboratory. It is not a problem to be solved. It is not an object of salvation. Palestine is a paradigm. As we witness ongoing, escalating, reiterative Nakba in Palestine and far beyond, let us listen to the abundant lessons Palestine offers. We cannot await a secular salvation or a messianic apocalypse in Palestine or anywhere on earth. We are already in the apocalypse. As we face the rapid shifts of the present, Palestinians teach us to remain vigilant about what got us here. They teach us to balance our understandings of continuity and rupture. As we struggle with the permanent temporary and a present suspended in time, we must learn from the Palestinians who make life amidst the certainty of death to plan not for, but despite the future. Palestinians remind us above all to keep telling our stories and to remain vigilant in the face of the realities that lie hidden underneath the rubble. We must listen to ordinary people narrating extraordinary things. These people craft the Palestinian tradition of storytelling. They do not do so to reflect history, but to shape it. As Rosemary Sayegh reminds us, telling our stories is a way of living despite catastrophe, of perceiving the world and intervening in it. Through these acts towards the world, Palestinians teach us to exceed exclusion from the human. They teach us to hold tightly to our visions of the possible, to shape and reshape life, even amidst the certainty of death. And in these ruins of generalized catastrophe, let us return to loss and abundance. Let us cultivate courage in spaces of fear. Let us find arenas of shared possibility across difference. Let us practice defiance in the hope that the future must still be ours.